Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Fear the Walking Dead. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously we're kind of picking up with June showing up at the community. Obviously, she wants to help out with Grace after losing the baby last episode, but Morgan won't let her in. Because from Morgan's perspective, it's like, for one, it's like, you weren't here, and the reason why you weren't here is because you crossed the line. You did what John told you not to do. But she's like, I am here. I can help Grace. It's like, but Morgan's like, I don't think there's anything I can say nor you can say that can fix any of this. But I think it's also because, like, from the perspective of June knows what it's like. It's a different loss, but obviously losing John, it's not the same thing as losing her child. But also it's like Grace lost her future, like this future she was going to have for her child's future that she dreamt of, the life that her child could have had. And for June, she lost her future with John, you know. So there is that common element, I think, that could bridge that gap of, it's not a one for one, but I think it's a pain that both of them can kind of understand from, within each other. And so, but Morgan was saying, because it's like, yeah, like, you could have had a place here and everything, but it's like, because you did what you did, and also, once again, you just did the one thing John told you not to do. And the fact is, you're only here because you feel bad that, like, because even, it's at the end of the day, it's like, considering everything that went down, there's no way June could have helped with the baby. But it's like, Morgan says, like, don't say that because you don't know. Because with Grace, it's like, Grace is blaming herself, saying, like, Athena ended up absorbing all the radiation. That's why she died, because and why Grace is still the one that's still alive. So she's thinking, like, she's blaming herself even more, like, my baby died because my baby saved me instead of me being able to save my baby, And so I thought, and Morgan kind of sending her away. And later on, she's on her own, but Dwight shows up because he followed, because he was like, I was on watch, so I heard what happened. So I just wanted to make sure you weren't out here alone. And it's not till Dwight reminded us that I was like, right, when Dwight's like, yeah, like, why he's going above and beyond for June. And he talks about this later on with Sherry. It's like, because he owes June and John. Like, when he was kind of at his low point, he's saying, like, when I was about to give up on my search for you, they kept me going. Even when he, like, had lost the trail to Sherry, they still kept him going, in particular John. So for him, it's like, John's going, the least I can do is look out for June, because you guys looked out for me, and I owe you both so much. The least I can do to pay my respects to John is also, like, to make sure that you're okay, And obviously, and it's the element of what I thought it was before, where June has her regrets. She's like, John asked me to leave with him, and I didn't. And there's a part of it is like, if I just ran away to the cabin with him, and that's the sad thing. There's so many what ifs. We don't know what would have happened. But I knew that immediately after what happened with John, I knew that by the end of that episode when John died, I knew that was going to be the thing on June's mind, because, like, she still carries the regrets of, what happened with her daughter, like, the group they were living with dying because her daughter got sick and she didn't kind of tell anyone, like, so she still carries that. So I knew she would carry regrets in this situation. It's like, it's just a sad circumstance, We also found out in this episode too that she never read John's letter. She still, because I think for her it's too painful, because also reading it is officially saying goodbye to him. As long as she doesn't read it, I think it's almost like, on some shape or form, it's like he's still alive. Like, you don't have to, like, have his final words be all you have left of him. Like, as long as you just have the letter, like, but it's too painful for her just to read the letters, Obviously, Sherry, as I was brought up earlier, is along with them, but even Dwight's like, I'm not sure why she is, though, and she's looking for gas, and it's like, eventually, they're thinking, like, it's for the MVAP, and it's like, is that what MVAP, and it's like, is that for that? Like, she seems so desperate for gas, and it's, so obviously they get shot at. June goes after the guy, because at first it's like she doesn't want to kill him, because it's like, right, this is connected to the end of the end is the beginning. She thinks, like, maybe he's someone that might have some idea about what's, we can pump in for information. She thinks he's one of the cult people, so she goes and follows him, goes into the truck and meets a guy, and he's not one of them, but he's been tracking him. He talks about it for a long time. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I do not know that actor's name on the top of my head. I've seen him in so many different things. The thing that comes to my mind, I believe it's the same actor. I could be wrong, because like in the show, in Dexter, he didn't have facial hair, so it's kind of wild. But what is his character's name? I'm blanking on. He's the dude that Deborah dates. I want to say in season 2, he's the older FBI agent that Deborah dates in Dexter. I think he pops up later on in the show, and then like, because I know his character, spoilers. But I think that's the same actor. I could be wrong. Like I said, I've seen him in a multitude of things. I just don't know his name off the top of my head. But yeah, it turns out he's kind of been hunting these people, and June's kind of proven like, no, we can work together. Like, hey, here's a place in the orchard. Like, they marked this place. It's somewhere you haven't got marked on your map, so we can help each other. So he's got a gun pointed on her, and he's calling her sweetheart. And she's like, "Don't call me sweetheart." It's like, "Well, what I call you then?" And I love that she doesn't say anything. She doesn't go like, "Call me June" or whatever. I was almost wondering if she'd go by like, "Oh, Laura" or Naomi, but she's like anything else. It's like, all right, like it's kind of almost interesting. Like just character wise, it's almost interesting that. Why he's a stranger? Why would you need to give that information out? But it's just interesting to a certain level that it's like, you're kind of going back to like, right, I'm not going to introduce myself as June, you know? Because anytime anyone else met her, she never did. It's like, John came up with the name Laura, and obviously she presented herself as Naomi to like Madison and them. So it's just interesting. So there's that element to it. But then, like, obviously he's got the gun pointed on her. She's able to kind of knock him back by maneuvering the vehicle and points a gun at him. And it's like, he's like, "Where'd you get those guns?" She's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Those are my guns. See, that's my gun. You see the JD? Those are my initials. John Doe." I'm like, what are the fucking chances? To be fair, when you think about everything working out the way it did, John running into Morgan, Laura quote unquote Laura, but June washing up on John's shore. It's like the beautiful like serendipity that exists in this universe, in this world. People finding each other. Hell, Dwight and Sherry finding each other. Like it, John and June finding each other. It's there, people being reunited and everything, and just the world working out in a funny way. And it's like, wow, June only knows obviously as much because he's like, yeah, the way John talked about you, I would have thought you were dead. And he's like, yeah, for what it concerns about my son, of course he would, at least from his perspective, of course it would seem like I was. And it's like, don't you want to know what your son's been up to for the past 40 years? And he's like, given the fact that you have that pistol, the 2 wedding rings and stuff like that, the look on your face, like, kind of got all I need. He's like, I'm pretty good at picking up on this stuff. I was a cop. And she's like, your son was too. And he's like, really? He's like, I thought he would have learned from me not to kind of go down that route. So I thought that was interesting. It's like, yeah, she found his dad, sadly after losing John. And obviously it's a little kind of a bit of a rocky start because like for him, it's like John's a complicated topic for him because he left his son like all those years ago. Like John had to be like 12 when he left, and he never popped back into John's life. We'll get to that later on, but it's because for him, the case he was working on, and it all comes full circle in this regard, it turns out he was after a killer named Teddy. This is a killer that he put away by framing him. And, for him, it's like he did a good thing, but he went about it the wrong way. And because of that, like, he felt guilty. He felt like everything, like his core, that was a core of who he was. He was a good man, and it ate away at him. And we saw the same thing happen to John. John killed someone, and that's why he became the way he was, where he was like super reluctant to kill people unless absolutely necessary, because he was a good man at heart, and it seems like obviously he got some of that from his dad, interestingly enough. And it's like, but it turns out Teddy obviously is the same Teddy that's running the cult, and it's like, that's why, like, for him, it's like, I locked this dude up back in like the 70s. I'm like, dude, this shit keeps coming full circle like this. This is nuts. And for it to be like Teddy's the case that kind of broke him, to understand, I think that's such a fascinating element to all. So like, that's why this is so personal for John, because for him, it's like, my entire life turned upside down because of this piece of crap. I corrupted who I was. I ended up abandoning my son and my wife because of this bastard. So for him, it's like, and that's kind of an aspect of this episode in many different regards, is revenge, revenge in his case for like the life that was kind of stolen from him because of Teddy. Obviously Sherry, which we'll get to in a second, wanting revenge against Negan. So it's just quite fascinating. But yeah, and the moment, like, he's like, yeah, the guy's been saying the end is the beginning since, like, even back then. We even find out, like, what the embalming fluid stuff about the dead is. It's like, that's his way of, like, basically, if you're not a part of, like, the family, you get embalmed and stuff, like a part of, like, his cult, because those who are embalmed, like, don't get to go on to the next world. Like, it's some crazy shit. It's like, yeah, he's crazy as hell, but he's smooth as hell and able to kind of convince so many people. Obviously, we've seen firsthand, at least a group have seen firsthand, what he's capable of, which obviously makes you even more scared for Alicia, because Alicia's in a vulnerable position considering everything that's happened, everything that she's lost, literally being the only member of her family left alive. Like, of course that's going to cause some issues. Like, she's still reeling from that pain doesn't go away, and like just everything she's been through. He's going to be able to get into her head being like, oh, you care about these people but they abandoned you. We'll see whether Alicia just ultimately ends up playing into it, or whether she does get fully seduced, or it might be a thing of, hey, you played a little too close to the vest, it might start skewing to the point it start making sense to you. Once again, that's kind of how cults work. They prey on people who are vulnerable, you know. But you know, that seems like that's going to be next episode, so we'll just kind of leave all that discussion for that. But keep focusing on this episode, going back to it, because Dwight could never understand. He's like, why Sherry's so like adamant about this, like why she's running the horses so hard, like why she's so like, got to do this, we got to find June. It's like, what is that? At first I was thinking like, is she pregnant, she worried about the baby, but running the horse as hard as she did, and Dwight being like, his heart gave out, we're gonna have to, and like just mercilessly she puts the horse down. It's like, Jesus, and just kind of moves on for him. It's like, what's going on, what's eating you? She's like, we don't have time. And eventually she opens up that for her, she needs to find, she wants to do this because what's eating her is that she needs to find, she hasn't been able to find the exact words to say goodbye. Because for her, it's like, I need to go back to Virginia because I need to put Negan down. Which I'm trying to remember when Dwight left. What was the conditions of that? I'm sure, I think, did he leave at the end of season 8? I don't remember. Like, so he knows Negan's alive and locked up and stuff like that, but once again, I don't know what the time frame is, like where the continuity of this show, like I don't think it's been nearly as long, like I don't think this show is going through all the time skips that The Walking Dead has yet. I don't think, but I could be wrong. So you know, it begs the question in that regard, but I think it's so fascinating because like it's so. Jenny ended up being her substitute for Negan. It's like she couldn't do anything about her anger towards Negan, so she took it out on Jenny. Jenny was a bad person anyway, regardless. But like, he became like the pseudo. She became the pseudo Negan. She became the what's the exact word I'm trying to think of? The pseudo placeholder for Negan, but now that Jenny's dead, she has nothing to point all that rage towards. I mean, to be fair, the end is the beginning, people, but when she looked at Jenny, she saw Negan, but now it's like, now that Jenny's not there, now that placeholder's not there anymore, it's like, you know what, I gotta find the genuine article, and I gotta put him down. I think on some level, she thought it would bring her peace, but I mean, to be fair, you know, it's not gonna fill that hole in her heart. It just won't. Which is ironic, this conversation's about Negan and stuff like that, considering where we left off with the bonus episodes, the final bonus episode being an episode all about Negan, and obviously being around Maggie, who wants it. I mean, it's not like she's the one that wants him dead the most. I mean, everyone else is kind of, their anger and their issues with Negan are still there. They're just subsided, considering everything that's going down. To be fair, Maggie hasn't really been around for a lot of that, so, like, obviously all she can still think of is all the death and destruction he caused. In particular, robbing her son of a father, so that's what this is all about for, regardless, this is what it's all about for Sherry, getting revenge against Negan. So I thought that was kind of, you know, fascinating in the long run. But obviously, you have June bringing it up to John that, like, okay, we need to find Hill. And it's like, who's Hill? It's like, he's a ranger. They knew all this information about, because that was like the main goal in the first place, was trying to find Hill. That's what she was bringing up to Dwight, because if they can find Hill, he's like one of the last rangers of Jenny's. He was actually probably like definitely like her right-hand man. So he would know any information that Jenny knew, he would know about these people. So that was like the plan from the beginning. But now it's like, okay, she doesn't know where they really begin searching for him, but then she starts thinking about it. It's like, right, the cabin, it'd be like the safe spot. It's a safe spot. He knows an area he knows well enough to kind of go. But John's like reluctant to go there because for him it's like it's the place he abandoned his son. So of course he's not going to be too keen about going back there. But obviously it's a sore spot for June too. It's like it's the place where I met my husband and also my husband died, so I'm not too keen about it, but I'm going anyway. It's like also that other pistol John's, that bastard has it. And John Sr.'s like, well, at the very least these guns kind of go together. Obviously there's a conversation between Dwight and Sherry where they meet up being like, oh, John Sr. is like, oh, how's that? And he's like, yeah, it's kind of funny how the world works out, just like, me and you finding our way to each other, But it's still a thing for her. It's like, I'm dead set on, like, once we get June and everything, we're kind of resolved with this, I'm going to go and I'm going to go to Virginia, kill Negan, so. But on the way there, John talked a little bit. Well, for one, he talks a little bit about Teddy and like Teddy wanting to kill everyone to destruction. That's why I'm like, those keys have to be like the nuclear launch codes or something. Hence why he was building a place underground. It's like, it's kind of like a bomb shelter. He's trying to, because he wants to raise the world, as in like RAZE, the world, the top side to the ground. It's like, it needs to start over, and it's just that world's not worth living anymore. So it's like, oh, here's this new world we're creating underground. Granted, they have to start from scratch, but also the problem is like, they're going to be expediting a lot of their plans. I don't know how they compensate for the fact is they lost their bunker and everything. Not unless they had, like, the place they're currently staying kind of compensates for that a little bit. But it's like, I wonder, is it that, type of thing of like, oh, the cult thing of like, right, drinking the Kool-Aid and we all die. Like, is he planning on killing everyone too? Is he giving his people this false hope of like, no, you'll be here in the new world, this will be down below? Or is that actually, I don't know. Once again, I brought it up, like, the comparison of like, right, the final season of the 100 kind of circles, deals with a particular cult and everything, and obviously what that grew into. So it just, this cult stuff is just interesting timing on my front, on that front. It's just all I was, thinking. But also when they go to Bill's, obviously it's a little reminiscent. Obviously we also learned really quickly that it's like, yeah, John it's like proposed to me with some butterscotch, with some candy, with a candy wrapper, and he laughs, and she's like, it's all he could afford at the time. It's like, yeah, like father like son, because he's like, yeah, I did the same thing when I proposed to his mother, except it was like juicy fruit or something like that. And I was like, oh, like that's so sweet. But obviously this reminiscing also affects June. It's like weighing hard on her because like being there at Bill's, it's like, right, reminds her of that time that, they were there together and everything, and it's just like him not being there anymore. Especially hearing John Sr. talk about Junior, the butterscotch. It's like, yo, he was obsessed with butterscotch. I mean, to be fair, he kept a piece of candy on him at all time, but also like he loved butterscotch ice cream and stuff, and it brings a smile to John Sr.'s face, reminiscing, but you can, like I said, you can tell it's weighing down on June. And obviously for John Sr., he can tell, so he wanted to try and protect June, like in his own way he was trying to protect her, so like, right, so you don't have to go back there. I was kind of being worried about going back there, but you shouldn't have to go back there with all those reminders, like, if anything happens to you, like, the fact is, we may not be blood, but you are the closest thing I've got to family now, so I'm not going to let anything happen to you, it's like, I abandoned my, but obviously June saying, like, all you're doing is, you're, kind of running away, which obviously ironic, like obviously June, sadly that's an aspect of her character we've come to know, like obviously like for the first time in a long time, John was the first thing and first person to be able to ground her, like keep her grounded, like her setting down roots. It's something she hasn't done in a long time, and he was able to kind of plant her feet squarely in the ground, and she was able to do that because she had John by her side. And so, and obviously like, she's still kind of running away from things too because she's not read his letter. Luckily, Sherry and Dwight find the jacket that has the letter in it, so. But John Sr. goes and runs into Hill, and obviously through the scrap, they end up finding out, like, it's like, right, whatever it is he's got planned, it's big. Hill was like, Jenny was never able to find out what it was because no one was ever willing to talk, so. That's how that ended up playing out. Obviously, during the scuffle, John Sr. sees John Jr.'s grave, and it makes him pause. Luckily, June, Sherry, and Dwight showed up in time to kill Hill. And, and to me, I think it comes full circle in many regards in that particular scene because it's like, right, June landed on his shore and he patched her up. The first time they got reunited, June had to patch him up from a gunshot wound, and now coming full circle in the regard of like, right, she has to be there to patch him up, John Sr. from a gunshot wound. So I think it's kind of interesting. Sadly, also like the medical supplies were meant for John, but she wasn't able to use them on him. So it's almost like befitting in a way for her to use it on his dad. So, but for him, he like John, the whole situation gave him perspective, because for him, it's like, he realizes like kind of what he did. It's like, right, his life was kind of destroyed to a certain. He is punishing himself. It's like that was kind of a commonality between him and June. It's like we're both trying to punish ourselves, and he acknowledges. He's like, but when I punished myself, I wasn't just punishing me. I ended up punishing my wife. I ended up punishing my son because I abandoned them. You know, so. And for him, it's like now he never gets a chance to actually make amends with John. But June's like, it's not too late. So all four of them go over to his grave, and June reads the letter. And for him, it was just him trying to do the right thing at the end of the day, just saving one innocent person's life and everything, you know? Make things right on that front. It's kind of, once again, just showing you the good-natured person he was. Because even John Sr. said, like, yeah, John had a light about him. And he looked at June, he's like, but I'm sure you knew that better than everyone. Because she had also talked about the fact is, like, you remember the Gulch? It's like, yeah, that's where John worked. It's like, yeah, that's how he taught me how to shoot. That's actually where we got married, surrounded by friends and everything. It was singing. It was beautiful. You know, sadly ended up being short-lived because of Jenny and everything. But, yeah. Her reading that letter, I won't lie to you, man. I was tearing up. I was like, oh, come on, keep it together. I was like, once again, this is why I have to watch Fear the Walking Dead first, because this episode was sad, but it's also beautifully hopeful, you know, in a certain regard that, you know, it's like, even though John's gone, it's like, you know, he had talked about the fact is that, like, I want you to know, like, I hope that you can forgive me one day, like, I forgave my dad. Like, I'm now in his shoes, and I understand what was going through his mind, so hopefully one day you'll forgive me, as I will... No matter what, I will always be fighting to get my way back to you, you know, saying that he loves her forever. And I was just like, oh, it was gut-wrenching, dude. It's so sad. I was like, why do I have to constantly be reminded that my boy John Dory isn't here anymore? Don't do this to me, you know? But I think hearing that conversation changed a lot for Sherry, too, because, you know, listening to that letter, I'm sure it reminds her of just, like, what her and Dwight have, and just... kind of like what they fought through to get, you know, finding their way back to each other. And also, like, you know, it's like all they're fighting to get back to each other, and now they've kind of lost each other, you know. And I think Sherry, you know, she ultimately talked about not wanting that, especially because she looks at John Sr. It's like, right, he ended up uplifting his entire life, like abandoning everything in his life for the sake of getting revenge against Teddy. And she's like, I don't want that to become me. I don't want my need to be... go after Negan to basically make me abandon all the things in my life. Like, she's like, I'm not ready to say goodbye, Dwight. And it's like, for her, she looks at Dwight and how much he's changed, and for her, she's like, I feel like you're going back to the person you were. And for her, like, her biggest fear, because she kept using Negan as an excuse, because she was scared that, like, if they were together, like, if she attempted to go back to who she was before everything, because maybe they talked about it, but I didn't remember. The fact is, him and I think even in this show, I don't think like just The Walking Dead, but I think like in Fear the Walking Dead, they must. I'm sure Dwight talked about it, but I didn't remember like him and Sherry go that far back. It's like, oh yeah, like they've known each other since they were young. Like it's like, oh yeah, remember senior year and stuff like that. So like they got a lot of history together, but for her, she was worried that, like, what if I can't go back to who I was? But, you know, for Dwight, it's like, I'm not. Like, I might have changed, but I'm not the person that I was before. Like, you know, he kind of found a new person to be, and kind of saying that maybe Sherry can too, you know? And it's like, rather than kind of holding on to who we were and everything, then why don't we start fresh, you know? This is our opportunity, you know? So, and he's like, I'm willing to give it a shot as long as you are. So, things kind of worked out on that front. Obviously, we have June bringing John back, and it's just like, yeah, this is someone else. This is John Sr. This is John's father. And it's like, Morgan's like, oh, you know, your son, he helped me more ways than one. And it's like, oh, yeah. It's like, yeah, man, it's beautiful to think about just like how, you know, how many lives John Dory has touched. That this right here is that beautiful example of just like how many people he helped bring together, how many connections, that even if he's gone, he still lives on through the connections between these people. He brought a lot of people together. He's kept a lot of people here, you know? So it's sad, yet like I said, it's hopeful and beautiful, you know? So obviously Morgan ends up apologizing, but he's like, yeah, but the fact is that you helped save John Sr. is what John would have wanted, like, you know, so it's you doing what John would have wanted. So it's like, she's like, if you would give me a second chance, and it's like, you know, she wants to kind of stay there and help Grace or whatever, you know, and he's like, yeah, sorry about what I said before, but it's like, yeah, I'd appreciate you doing whatever you can. I should also note, she gave Dwight back the rings. I'd actually let that slip my mind that those were Dwight and Sherry's rings, because he didn't know where Sherry was at the time, so it's like, right, you guys need these. And it's like, June is like, I want to give these back, plus I know John would want to as well. So, yeah, so we're taking steps forward. Obviously going to learn all we can about Teddy and everything. So this is definitely going to be interesting. Like I said, I think we got some like nuclear launch codes, end all life type of thing. I think that's what those keys connect to. I don't know how many there are in totality, but I'm sure it's a thing of you need all of them. I'm curious, is it going to be like a, do you need 2? Do you need... Because it could easily be like a, oh yeah, that 2 thing where you have to like synchronize like keys. It might be like that type of thing. Or it might be like kind of like a... What kind of immediately pops in my mind is like Grimm. There's like 7 keys. Which, spoiler alerts, is actually kind of interesting really quickly in Grimm. It's funny, they never found all 7 keys. They found a way to work around that. But I wonder, was that always a plan, or was it just because the show came to an end that they like was like, we're gonna skip it, and like, we'll shift around this. I forgot how many keys they ultimately ended up getting at the end. It was like 3 or 4. They got most of the keys, if I'm not mistaken. Regardless, tangent. If you've never seen Grimm, I highly recommend you check it out. I think it's on Prime Video. I think it's streaming on Prime Video. I don't think you have to pay for it, but I could be mistaken. So don't quote me on that. But it's a really good show. I highly recommend you check it out. Tangents and all that aside, but it's going to really be interesting to see where all this goes, taking us, where all of this takes us going forward. Like I said, caught a glimpse of the next preview, and I avoided watching it, but I saw it was Alicia, so we're circling back to that. Interesting, like we're getting more insight about Teddy on this front, and now we're going to be getting even more insight from kind of like the ground floor, as you know, Alicia's probably going to end up talking to him, and he's going to seep into her brain and kind of. Hopefully he doesn't convince her. We'll see how that ultimately all turns out. But yeah, really that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.